Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SimNFL Show. Real talk about fake sports. I am your host and commissioner. You can call me Pierce. Today, we are covering all of the Week 3 action from the 2025 season of the Pro Sim over at SimSN. The season is in full swing, and so we are going to dive right into today's show. So, as always, we're going to cover the stats and summaries from all the Week 3 games. We're going to highlight a couple of close ones and then go to the scoreboard. We will wrap that up with my choices for Players of the Week. We'll do a quick injury update and look at the current state of the NFL standings. And then we're going to do a new segment called Pierce's Tiers, which I'm very excited to show you. And then, of course, we will preview all of the upcoming games in Week 4. So, starting off, there was a great matchup between two AFC playoff hopefuls in the Browns and the Chargers, with the Chargers coming out on top in this one. They went out to a 14-3 lead by halftime to the Chargers. Browns responded at the beginning of the second half with an 8-point drive, a touchdown and a 2-pointer. The Chargers responded with a touchdown drive of their own to push the lead back to 10. Later in the game, a blocked punt and a 25-yard run by Juan Mora set up a touchdown pass and a missed extra point. So despite all their efforts, it was a 4-point game, and the Chargers' final field goal was able to stretch that to 7. At the very end of the game, with about 6 minutes left, Cleveland put on a 16-play drive, including a 4th down conversion, to get all the way to the Chargers' 12-yard line. But on 4th and 6, with 17 seconds to go, they were stopped and turned the ball over on downs, and the Chargers were able to just hang on, avoid giving up a tying score, and come away with the win. Miguel Aguilera had 148 yards through the air and another 120 on the ground. James Carter adding 91 and a touchdown himself, as the Chargers escaped with the close win there. We had a great divisional matchup between the Jaguars and the Titans. The Titans set up their first touchdown early with a strip sack of Matt Howard. And later in the second quarter, they drove down to the Jacksonville 1-yard line, but were forced to settle for a field goal. They then after an interception, drove down to the Jaguars' 2-yard line, but again left with just a field goal. So that made it 13-0. And then right before half, Matt Howard completed 3 consecutive passes for 60 yards to get into the end zone and cut the lead in half. And then on their first possession of the third quarter, led another touchdown drive to take the lead 14-13. After Tennessee regained the lead with a field goal, Howard connected with Ray Thompson for a 46-yard gain, leading up to a 6-yard touchdown pass to tight end Jin Zhang for extending that lead. Tennessee drove for another field goal attempt, which was blocked, leaving it at 21-16. But after a stop, Tennessee would drive down, get a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to retake the lead by 3. Jacksonville would score again with about 7.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, retaking the lead for that, and they would hold on from there. Wayne Reimer had a fumble on his own 45-yard line with just about a minute to go to kill the Titans' final drive. So the Jaguars would hold off for the win. 28-24 is the final there. Matt Howard, 351 yards and 3 touchdowns in the victory. Joseph Cale, 18 carries, 106 yards, and a pair of touchdowns for the Titans in that close loss. The Cowboys had a real scare going up against the Seattle Seahawks, though they were ultimately able to pull out the win. Cowboys had the lead at halftime 9-7 on a trio of field goals, but Seattle took the lead late in the third on a touchdown pass from Jeremiah West to Austin DuVernay-Tardif of 28 yards. Dallas responded with a Jesse Knoll to tight end Henry Green 19-yard touchdown plus a 2-pointer to make it 17-14 in favor of the Cowboys. And then got the ball back and drove down for a Vladimir Dawson touchdown run to extend the lead. Seattle scored with about 4 minutes to go, bring it to a field goal. And then Dallas, in trying to kill the clock on their last drive, actually drove to the Seattle 15-yard line, but ran out of downs, tried to kick a field goal, and missed. So with less than a minute to go, Seattle got the ball, and a couple plays in, Jeremiah West found Yaxel Knox for a desperation 47-yard completion, giving them just enough time, a few seconds left, to attempt a 55-yard game-tying field goal, which unfortunately they were not able to convert. So the Cowboys escape with the win. Vladimir Dawson, the star for them, 157 yards rushing and a touchdown. He did fumble a couple of times. Jeremiah West looking great in his new digs in Seattle, 349 yards and a pair of touchdowns. Clayton McGee joining in with 120 rushing yards as well. On Sunday night, there was a tight matchup between two dominant teams in the NFC. Washington scored a touchdown on their first drive of the game, 11 plays, 75 yards, but then was shut out of the end zone from there. And Green Bay kept chipping away with field goals, one in each of the first three quarters. And then with the score 10-9 in the final, in under a few minutes to go, Green Bay made a 5-minute, 10-play drive, 59 yards, ending with a Clement Carr 9-yard touchdown run. And a 2-point conversion gave them the 17-10 lead, and they were able to hold on for the victory. Joseph Garibay was picked off 3 times by the Commanders, but did manage 271 yards. Stephen Tabbert, 157 total yards from scrimmage and a touchdown on 32 touches for the Commanders. But it was the Packers who ultimately came away with the win in this very close game. We had a great division contest with the Bears coming on top of the Lions, 19-14. Chicago actually built a 17-0 lead as early as the second quarter, based on that great rushing attack with Gerald Lewis and Pat Flexen working together. But Tanner Lake, early in the second half, broke away for a 58-yard touchdown run to finally get the Lions going. The Lions were then able to pick off Gerald Lewis in their own territory and ultimately drive for another touchdown in the fourth quarter to bring it to 17-14. But after the Bears pinned the Lions deep, they did give up a safety after there was a deep punt and then a penalty, put the ball at the Detroit 6-yard line, from which Hansen was sacked, and the Bears got their extra 2 points. Were unable to run out the clock, so the Lions did get a final drive. They made it all the way to the Chicago 34-yard line, hoping for a miracle touchdown to win the game. Alas, the last 2 passes were incomplete, and so the Bears held on for a 5-point victory. Gerald Lewis and Pat Flexen combining for over 190 yards rushing in the game. Randall Hansen, 239 yards passing and an interception, and Tanner Lake with a pair of touchdowns for the Lions. Also got to shout out Bradley Cook with 5.5 tackles for loss in this one. And quarterbacks for the Bears, Giannis Wright and Gary Lindblad, with a combined 5 pass breakups and 2 turnovers and a fumble and an interception. In a close contest, the Giants escaped the San Francisco 49ers 18-13. We were still without a touchdown, 6-3 in the third quarter, when Andrew Solano's interception led to a Jonathan Perez touchdown catch from 13 yards out. Giants missed the extra point, so it was 12-3 at that point. And it was 12-6 late in the fourth quarter when Andrew Solano found Fernando Thomas for a 33-yard completion and then a 4-yard touchdown, giving the 49ers a 1-point lead with the extra point. But the Giants drove 70 yards in only 5 plays. Perez had a 40-yard run, and then Lamar Johnson found Paul Canna for a 22-yard game-winning touchdown after San Francisco was stopped on their final drive. So the Giants, for a third consecutive week, find themselves down in the fourth quarter, but find a way to win the game, overcoming Lamar Johnson's 4 interceptions, thanks to over 200 yards on the ground between Johnson and Jonathan Perez. Also, shout out to Robert Monzel for 5 tackles for loss and a sack in that one. So for the rest of the Week 3 scoreboard, Miami was all over Buffalo, 38-13. Miami defense sacked Yusei Asensio 9 times, and they recovered 3 fumbles. Baltimore beat Kansas City 37-9. David Chop ran for 212 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also passed for a 4th touchdown. Similarly, Pittsburgh beat Cincinnati by 20 points. Pittsburgh relying heavily on that defensive front four, including tackle Robert Berry, who had 6 tackles for loss and 3 sacks himself. 6 sacks total for the team in that one. Indianapolis beat Houston 24-9. Gary Freitag had 170 rushing yards and a touchdown, passed for a pair of touchdowns as well. Denver beat the Jets 31-7. Peter London 20 of 22 with an interception. And then Hugh Kahn, the big story, 35 carries, 198 yards rushing, and 3 touchdowns. Thomas Gezik had a big day, leading the Cardinals past an injury-riddled Minnesota Vikings squad. Gezik had 197 yards and a trio of touchdowns. Of course, the big story with Minnesota playing without Christian Sinek at quarterback, and then having their starting running back drop with an injury as well. Dakota Link had a great game for Carolina, 27 of 37 for 334 yards and 3 touchdowns with no interceptions, leading Carolina past the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 24-15. With Atlanta and New Orleans, Padilla and Landrum combined for 5 interceptions. Okoye Landrum was also sacked 7 times, as Atlanta ultimately came out on top 28-14. Philadelphia was leading the Rams by a comfortable margin before Aaron Poole got injured in the second quarter, and so a 17-3 lead quickly turned into a 38-24 defeat. Philip Avila, 38-50, 502 passing yards with 5 touchdowns and a pick. Then on Monday night, Las Vegas finished ahead of New England 30-12 in a game that was much closer than the final score might suggest. Ultimately, it was the trio of Blank, Andrew Richards, and Pedro Ecalar who all had 147 or more receiving yards from James Hickson. Hickson, 463 total passing yards on the day as Vegas wins that one. So with all of that said, here are my choices for the players of the week. Got to shout out Avila with those 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. And David Chop also 165 yards passing and a touchdown, 212 yards rushing, and 3 touchdowns for 4 scores in all. And then Hugh Kahn and Thomas Gezik both having over 190 yards rushing and a bevy of touchdowns between them. On the defensive side, we had Robert Monza with his 5 tackles for loss and a sack, Robert Berry with 6 tackles for loss and 3 sacks, and then a pair of strong safety performances, Manish Watson for Green Bay with a tackle for loss, forcing a fumble, breaking up a pass, and intercepting a pass as well. And then we have another player of the week mention for Jeffrey Cullum of the Buccaneers, 15 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 passes defended. Cullum all over the field and effective against both the run and the pass for the Buccaneers. So those are my personal selections for the players of the week for week 3. Injury report, as we mentioned, Minnesota dealing with a couple of big injuries. Christian Sinek still going to be out approximately 3 more weeks with that sprained foot injury. And then James Ibach, after having a huge game last week, pulling a hamstring, he will be out for 5. So Minnesota without 2 of its top offensive weapons for the coming weeks. Aaron Poole, also, as I said, out for Philadelphia. That should be just a week with the elbow tendonitis, but will be out. So they will be going with backups. And then the Chargers, Gary Alvarez, dislocating a foot. He'll be out for 4 weeks. So after 3 weeks of pro football, here is where we stand. In the AFC, the Dolphins already have a 2-game lead in the AFC East. In the North, the Steelers have an edge in a very battered black and blue division with a couple of wins there. Tennessee and Jacksonville, a couple of wins each in the AFC South, although right now Jacksonville would have the edge based on the fact that they just beat the Titans. And then a 3-0 Raiders squad is in the lead in the West over 2 very good teams in Denver and Los Angeles. Over in the NFC, we have the surprising Giants, 3-0, leading Dallas and Washington. We also have undefeated teams in all the other divisions. The Packers leading the Bears, the Carolina Panthers in the South leading the Falcons, and then in the West, the Rams leading the Cardinals, who are 2-1 and still very much in the thick of things. So we have a news segment for today. I'm very excited about this. You know, we try to be original and do our own thing here on the SimNFL show, but sometimes a segment comes along that is so perfect for what we do that we just have to straight up copy it wholesale. And so that is where we will be starting today with the first ever edition of Pierce's Tiers. So I have taken all 32 teams in the NFL and put them into different tiers based on my own judgments. But these are not simply, A, B, and C tiers. These are finely crafted, esoteric, idiosyncratic tiers that describe exactly where all of these teams are at in their season journey. So we're going to start all the way at the bottom with, hey, when's the draft? 4 teams that maybe already be looking toward the future. We have a couple of 2022 drafted quarterbacks in Asensio and Rashawn Lyons for the Patriots. And then a couple of, yes, I will say it, mid-tier quarterbacks in Gurovich, who's a 68 overall, and Valenzuela, 66. Both of them having excellent games so far, but I don't know about how much they are the future of those franchises. Asensio, we know the team is working on an extension, and then Lions, Patriots are picking up his 5th-year option. So both of them still getting votes of confidence, but still needing to develop. And these 4 franchises possibly, as I said, already kind of looking forward to what the future might hold. A step up from that, we've got some of our young quarterbacks. This season is all about experience for the Texans with Nebel, and then Landrum with the Saints, and Solano with the 49ers. So 3 franchises with probably lower expectations, but they've already got their quarterbacks. They're getting everyone's snaps. They're looking to develop and see what these quarterbacks can do in the next coming years. So not pushovers by any means, but certainly playing the long game as far as development goes. Now we have 3 teams that are not so harmless. Teams that you might look at and just based on past performance, maybe gloss over real quick. But there's a lot more here than meets the eye. First off, Arizona's 2-1. Let's start there. Yes, they defeated San Francisco and Minnesota without their starting quarterback. But that's 2 wins. That's all that matters is what's in the win column. And they got a pair of them already past their pace from last year. Seattle has had a brutal opening schedule. They started with Washington. Then they went to LA to play the Rams, lost by 2. Then they went to Dallas to play the defending champs and lost by 3, and only when a miracle kick missed, the 55-yarder. So that's an incredible, albeit 0-3 start. Jeremiah West has that offense really moving, and I think this is not a rubber stamp W on the schedule anymore. And I think the Seahawks, will be 500 at some point this season when their schedule eases off a little bit. Tampa Bay is still riding high off of that opening game victory, but when you defeat the Super Bowl champs by 30 points, I think you deserve a little bit of a little respect on your name and a little benefit of the doubt. So another team that with Tap Horn and Max Smith can really run the ball, 300 plus yards a game. Don't underestimate them. So yeah, 3 teams that can definitely do some damage, I think, in the coming weeks. We talked about young QBs. Let's talk about old QBs. Jose Padilla is 33. Gary Freitag is 35. And both of them are still dragging their teams week to week, absolutely trying to carry those 2 offenses. I don't know how long they can do it for. Freitag's contract, I know, is up at the end of the season. But both of them doing everything they can to put the team on their backs and get them wins where they can. Now we have 3 playoff teams that may have felt like a threat at the beginning of the season, and based on their 1 and 2 starts, maybe we're not feeling that way anymore. I'm not saying these are pushovers or bad teams. They're still good teams. And they definitely have played tough schedules. Cleveland lost to Washington and the LA Chargers. Detroit just had a close game against Chicago. I mean, the Jets have lost to the Rams and the Broncos by a lot, but two very good teams. So, is this just an issue of scheduling? Are they just getting going? Are they going to turn it around? Hard to say. There's a lot of season left to be played. But three playoff teams coming into the season that maybe the sheen has come off just a little bit, at least based on early results. Call an ambulance. Please. Minnesota is in desperate need. They lost their best passer, and then they discovered a great rusher, and now he's hurt. Someone help them. I don't know what they're going to do over the next 3 weeks. Credit to anyone who can get a victory with those two down. In desperate need of some help, a great team that would be far better if they actually were healthy. In the same vein, the Eagles with Aaron Poole, he's only out one more week, hopefully. But you got to feel for Sage, who lost two of his quarterbacks at Utah the day before he lost Poole with the Eagles. So that's three quarterbacks going down for the same user in one weekend of football. I don't know what Sage did to tick off the random number god, but he should invest in some holy water or something. I don't know. Call an ambulance. The Eagles need it. Hopefully they get Poole back and can continue from there. Run, Forrest, run. Yeah, quarterbacks are great. Yeah, it's great when they can throw the ball, but maybe it's fine if they just run the ball. David Chop, Gerald Lewis, Miguel Aguilera, Robert Morris, Wayne Reimer, all these franchises finding success with running quarterbacks, able to control the ball, string some wins together, or certainly threaten teams when you have both a quarterback and a running back who can run the ball. Yeah. What else? What else do you do? Run the ball, and then keep running the ball. Or you could say, "F it, chuck it." You just throw it, just huck it. The receiver's down there somewhere, right? Dakota Link, Howard, James Hickson, Avila. They all know how to throw the ball all over the field. They make all the throws. They put up a lot of big plays. They put up the yards. And hey, maybe that's what you need. You don't need a two-headed rushing attack. You just need one solid throwing arm. And these four teams have figured out how to use that to their advantage. Call an ambulance, but not for me. Okay, three past Super Bowl champions, all three of them shown to be beatable. Dallas, Denver, Washington. They were a combined 46-5 in the regular season last year. 5 regular season losses. They've already lost 3, 1 each. So they are beatable. Do not underestimate them. I can't believe I'm saying that. Yeah, they're going to embarrass a lot more teams. So call an ambulance, but it's not for them. They're very, very good. And their coaches are very attuned to what's going on and are going to make adjustments and figure out what to do to keep their dominant streaks alive. Now, reaching up to the top, we have some teams who are both lucky and good. As I said, the New York Giants were losing in all 3 of the fourth quarters in their first 3 games, and they have emerged from them 3-0. Green Bay also 3-0 after getting a late interception to kill a final game-winning drive with Minnesota, and then having their own game-winning drive just now over Washington when they were down 10-9, and finally finding their first touchdown. Only touchdown, but it was the only one they needed. So 2 3-0 teams who are very good, but have also been on just the right side of good fortune so far. Well, that's 31 teams. There's only one team left, and it means that one final team might just be actually good. The Miami Dolphins don't just have the best scoring offense in the league, scoring 123 points in 3 weeks. They also have the best scoring defense in the league, allowing only 31 points. That is a plus 92 margin in only their first 3 weeks, going 3-0. Their starting defense has not allowed a touchdown. The team went 11 quarters, only giving up field goals. Their second teamers gave up 1 score in garbage time of their most recent game against Buffalo. So that's it. Teams literally have not scored on the Dolphins, and they've racked up 40 points a game. Dean Hammonds is in his prime. He's slinging it everywhere. Defense looks great. The Dolphins are just actually good, and that's about all you need to say. So that is it for the first edition of Pierce's Tears. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope we get to revisit this segment in the future. Looking ahead to week 4, we have a great slate of games. We start off with Thursday night. It's going to be an interesting contest. We have San Francisco versus the Philadelphia Eagles without Aaron Poole. So we will see who comes out on top in that primetime game. When we get to Sunday, in the early slot, we have Miami at Tennessee. And then also Tampa Bay is at Green Bay, a couple of former division rivals before the realignment, facing off once again. In the afternoon, we have the Jets going to Jacksonville to face Howard and the Jaguars. We also have Atlanta at Chicago, a pair of 2-1 teams in the NFC. The big game of the week, in my opinion, is Sunday night, where we get Dallas at the LA Rams. Dallas rattling off 2 big victories after that opening day loss, and the Rams at 3-0. Philip Avila in mid-season form with 500 yards this last week. He and Jesse Noel are going to go head-to-head, and I think it's going to be a great game. And then we're going to wrap things all up on Monday night with an AFC North slugfest. The Cleveland Browns are at the Baltimore Ravens. Always a great game when you have a rivalry like this one. Anything could happen, and we will see what will happen on Monday night. That wraps up everything for this edition of the SimNFL show. Thank you all so much for stopping by and watching today. To all users, owners, and GMs out there of the Pro Sim, thank you so much. Good luck and have fun.